LA is known as the place where dreams come true. The dreams of up-and-coming stand-up comedians are no exception. Comedians are known for making people laugh and giving them joy, but a lot of comedians struggle with finding this happiness within themselves. There's little research done on the subject, but after compiling comedians' testimonies, it is apparent this is a significant problem. Many comedians are beginning to open up about their struggles with mental health, although some have kept the battle more internal. Brody Stephens, a well-known LA comic, tragically took his life in early 2019. Brody struggled with bipolar disorder and depression.
I'm healthy. I don't eat at McDonald's. I use the drive-thru.
Well, here in my apartment. Did I mention that I'm heavily doped up?
Possibly you know what depression feels like. Yes, I do.
Brody's passing was devastating to the entire stand-up community, but he is celebrated annually at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles with the Brody Stephens Festival of Friendship comedy event. Gary Gulman is another comedian who battles with mental health issues. He has spoken publicly about it and even has a comedy special focusing on depression.
You've opened up recently and started talking about your battle with depression. You talk about your battle with depression in this special that you did, and I'm guessing that was a conscious decision. You felt like it's time to talk about this now.
It was conscious, but also I was so sick, like I was so shaky, and I was biting my lip all the time when I get anxious. And I was.
Is this because you were having? What were you? This was during the height of your depression?
Yes.
And
yes. It was coupled with anxiety.
Yes.
It was a wonderful companion to depression. Is the nerves and the shaking. And so when I would go on stage, it was so clear there was something off that I had to address it.
You went through a real serious phase of depression and went and got help.
Yes.
And got medical help, and then you come out of it, and by talking about it, I think you are letting a lot of other people know, especially in comedy, this is a huge issue.
Right.
I got very sick with the depression. I grew up in the 70s, and the only antidepressants we had access to was Snap Out of It and What Have You Got to Be Depressed About?
Pete Davidson, a cast member on Saturday Night Live, is another comedian who has publicly spoken about his mental illness.
There's also been a national conversation this week about mental health. Here to share his thoughts on this topic is Pete Davidson.
Well, as some of you may know, I was recently diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, a form of depression, and depression affects more than 16 million people in this country, and there's no cure per se, but for anyone dealing with it, there are treatments that can help.
Professional comedians are now speaking candidly about their experiences with mental illness, but where does that leave aspiring comedians? Now, we'll hear from one of LA's up-and-coming comedians on his mental health journey.
Morano, and I just turned 30 this month, last month. I moved out here with really no intention of getting into stand-up from New York, and then just kind of being around people in the industry, and it's more available out here with all the comedy clubs. Nothing that I really got diagnosed, but I'm pretty self-aware, and I've always been really aware of how I feel, but definitely when I was younger, I still deal with it now, but it's gotten a lot better. But definitely anxiety. As a young adult, through my teens and early 20s, I was extremely anxious, a hyperactive thought process, would always think of every outcome possible. And I would say that was my biggest one that I always had to tackle in pretty much everyday situation, going to work, any kind of interface that's social.
It's apparent that there are many comedians who struggle with mental health. These struggles do not go away with status and fame. But with more and more comedians sharing their mental health journey, the stigma of seeking help will slowly dissipate.